Let's see. Okay. I believe that's it. I think we're live.
We are live.
Let's check this out.
Let's go live. Come on.
Let's see here. Yes. Well,
Setting my clock.
I think I'm most excited out of any webinar that we've done. I think I'm most excited for this one. I think it's selfish. It's what I need to grow the most in. So I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah. Anytime I do a webinar on a topic, I know this is for me. This is what I need to keep working on. So
we're going to talk about something that is difficult for most people. Not tough conversations. That is difficult for most people. We're going to talk about that more here in a second. Singing karaoke in front of others is also very difficult. And so our icebreaker question for the day is, what is your go-to karaoke song? I see Hampton in the comments that he is fired up, all caps. I've actually heard Hampton Dorsch perform Hurricane by Luke Combs, and man, is it a sight in a performance. I was about to say the same thing. I have seen that guy live doing some karaoke. Where were we? San Diego, I think. San Diego.
And we hit that same karaoke place, I think 3 nights in a row, because he stole the show. So what is it? You got a new one, Hampton? What's your new go-to karaoke song?
While Hampton's popping his in the chat, Cord, I got to hear what's yours. What you get thrown on the spot, you got to step up on stage and perform. What song are you requesting?
Man, there was a song that I was so proud of back in really high school. Like, I'm not great with words. If anybody knows me well at all, they know that I get titles of songs wrong, or I mix up words. I mean, I'm that guy that when you ask him to sing, there's a certain line that you don't know the words at all. So there was a song by LL Cool J called "I Need Love" that I learned every word to the rap and could sing it at will. So that would be one of my go-tos, would be LL Cool J's "I Need Love."
Man, I would pay money. I may go purchase a karaoke machine for the office just so that I can hear the reenactment of that, Cord.
And I don't even need a karaoke machine for that one. I still got every word.
Well, if you have time at the end of the webinar, stick around, people. You may hear some LL Cool J as we wrap up. We got Michelle Jackson coming in with Winter Wonderland. Just a classic when Christmas time rolls around. Kaylee, do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm going to speak for myself, but also my husband. If he can get somebody to play "He Stopped Loving Her Today" by George Jones, he will get up and sing it at any time. So I'm always supporting that. That's what I'll ask for, just to see him get up and sing it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's see.
Love it.
Lauren, "We Are the Champions," but only the chorus. I agree.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good on the chorus there too. Past the chorus, and I fall off real quick. But I agree, Miss Lauren. Absolutely.
That's a good one.
I don't know.
I think Nate Booth just gave us a YouTube watch link. I'm not going to click on it now, but I will go after to see what that's all about. So
yeah, I'm dying to see what song it is. I don't know that I have a go-to. I don't know if I'm good enough. I'm a good enough of a singer to have a go-to karaoke song. But the most recent karaoke song that I sang was a duet. My daughter loves singing karaoke. She's got a little Bluetooth karaoke machine. "Love is an Open Door" for all of my Frozen fans out there. Great duet.
That's a good one. I like that. I think it's a link to some LL Cool J. I think that's them pulling you out.
I'm so intrigued. It will be the first thing I click when I'm done.
Let's see.
Mama Tried. I love it. Little Merle Haggard.
These are good answers. These are adding to my list of things I need to try out on karaoke at least once.
I think next month's webinar, it may just have to be an open mic where we allow people to hop on and
Oh, Baby Got Back. That's a good one.
oh man.
And then we got Salt and Pepper. That's a good one too.
Come on, she's in my era. Salt and Pepper.
Those are great.
So much fun.
Come on, don't miss out. Hey, we're gonna have a very, very involved chat today. So start working your chat muscles. Last few minutes here before we get rolling. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Let's see, we've got
Little Bye Bye Bye. Are you doing the you know the dance too there, Taylor?
I bet Taylor's got the choreography down. Friends in Low
people.
Place is just a classic.
Yeah, we'll look at the duet later. We may have a lot of visitors on this webinar today that decide to check out early. So
a duet.
Well, all right.
It
is we're in time. So let's get on to the next.
I think we're close. Are we ready to rock and roll here?
So let's get this.
Maybe 60 more seconds.
I think so. I think we'll let a couple more answers roll in and then we'll get things started.
Favorite karaoke song or the go-to karaoke song. I won't ask you why you can't remember the song. That sounds like a pretty memorable moment. But well done.
It sounds epic. What was the concert? Was it a concert? I got to know more. I just have so many questions. Fatima with some Whitney Houston in the comments. That's a bold choice. Yeah, that is a bold.
You got to have some pipes to sing Whitney now.
Okay. All right. I think we'll jump right in. Okay. Those were great answers. I loved every single bit of that. I'll definitely have to add those to my list of karaoke songs. But so with that, I will go ahead and introduce myself because I know I'm a new face for people who've joined us in the past. I'm Kaylee Clark. I am a marketing specialist here at Wildsparq. I joined. It's been an honor. It's been the best about month and a half of my life. So I joined back beginning of February. So this is my first webinar to be a part of. It's a privilege. I'm excited to join y'all, learn from two of the best. So today we are going to be mainly covering tough conversations, how you can learn to love those that might seem impossible. But when conflict and tough conversations are almost inevitable in any workplace, you just kind of got to take them head on, learn how to just navigate it with, grace as much as you can. And you want to maximize, your results from that. So we're going to bring you some of the do's and don'ts and how you can best prepare for them, what that would look like. So I know that we are super excited to jump into this. So with that, I will introduce y'all to the masterminds behind all of this. We have our founder. Oh, don't even shake your head, Josh Sling. We have our founder and our CEO, Sachs. He is one of the best. It's an honor to be led by him, get to learn from him every day. So he's going to, kind of provide a framework, if you will, to handle conflict, cultivate the best results that you can. And then we have Josh Swing in our office. He is our team captain. He is, pretty famous in the Wildsparq community. Not only because, he's one of the ones that's been here the longest, but truly anytime you have a conversation with him, you walk away better, more empowered, challenged in the best way possible. So they are going to both be bringing us a great discussion lesson, if you will. If you have any questions, comments throughout it, make sure that you drop those below. We encourage it. We love it. We love to hear from you. Love to see some participation and engagement. And just don't hesitate. Don't feel shy. That's what it's here for. We're just happy to have y'all join us today and just kind of unpack this with us. So with that, I think that is enough from me. We will hand it back over to the experts. So I'm excited.
Kaylee, that's never enough from you. There's never enough. I think I could sit here and listen to Kaylee talk all day. She is also an expert on all things leadership, so don't let her fool you, people. But we're super excited to jump in today. Like Kaylee said, I want to start off with a question, and I will give you an upfront disclaimer. We're going to ask you to get a little vulnerable today. I hope that's okay with everybody. We're going to be talking about something that's pretty difficult, and that's tough conversations. And so I would ask you to lean in and be brutally honest with yourself and maybe participate in the chat with some of that honesty. Our first discussion question that I want us to think about today would be, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you love having tough conversations? I'm interested to see some of the responses here of how much you love tough conversations. So if you would put that number in the chat, just throw a number in there and submit your number in the chat for how much you love tough conversations. We've got a 3 tops from Greg. Greg, I'm right there with you, man. I like to say that I'm a recovering nice guy. This was an absolute 0 for me. For most of my life, I would run from it like the plague. We've got 1s, 0s, 2s, 5s, 4s coming in. And I appreciate everybody's honesty as you're evaluating how you feel about tough conversations. Obviously, 0 being like the thought of conflict makes my skin crawl, and 10, like I just can't wait. I can't wait to jump in and handle conflict with somebody. I'm going to kick it to Cord, and he's going to talk about the problem. I would also say that I'm pretty low on loving tough conversations. What I do love is what happens on the other side of tough conversations. But Cord, I'd love for you to share why are all these numbers so low? As you're watching these numbers come through, a lot of 2s, 3s. I would guess the average would probably be about a 2 of what I'm seeing in the comments. But why do you think that's a 2 for most people?
Yeah, no, love it, guys. I'm the same way, and I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I'm a challenger, so I'm a little higher, but I mean, I'm probably a 5. I do not love. I'm still I'm an ENFP, so I'm also a feeler, so that feeler kicks in, and I don't love tough conversations. I love Fatima though. She put a 7, and I think Kim said it depends on if I'm able to make an impact, and that's hopefully a clue, Kim. That's a clue to what we're going to talk about today that I hope will move the needle. So wherever you are on this scale, you gave a number. I hope by the end of the day that you don't initially go to work every day thinking I'm going to love to get in a tough conversation, but because you're going to see, number 1, what's at stake. And number 2, hopefully you're going to get a plan, right? You're going to have a plan to leave today with a very practical plan on how to move towards tough conversations. Because the problem here, no one loves tough conversations. We've already proven that, but we all know they're needed. And not just at work, right? In every domain of life, you can't get away from tough conversations. If you want a healthy dynamic, I don't care if we're talking about the workplace, if we're talking about home, in your relationship with your spouse, your significant other, if your relationship with those of you who have kids, tough conversations are absolutely crucial, and they're in every domain of life. So that's increasing the value of why we need to get pretty good at them. Relationships and accountability are at stake. At the end of the day, we do a lot of culture benchmarks with organizations. We come in and we help them assess their culture. And at the end of the day, some of the biggest things that we come back as it pertains to the health of teams inside of the organization is, number 1, do they have healthy relationships? Are they open and honest? Is there a high level of trust? And then number 2 is there a sense of accountability that is held by the leadership of the organization, the leadership of the team, the leadership of the department? To the degree that there are healthy relationships and healthy accountability, teams can thrive. But the inverse, where those are lacking, teams will be destroyed. And so we at the end of the day, most of us, we just don't know where to start. If we're honest, if we're really honest, we'd rather just stay oblivious when it comes up that we need to have a tough conversation. And so many of you have and maybe not seen this. This is actually a phenomenon to where ostriches do bury their heads in the sand. It's just not what people think. They're not burying their heads in the sand because they're afraid. It's usually the female ostrich, and she's burying her head in the sand because there's a nest underneath and she wants to take care. But there is this thing called the ostrich syndrome. You know, you've heard the quote, "Get your head out of the sand." Well, it's named after this popular belief. It's a form of avoidance coping that people use to manage uncomfortable feelings, or rather just not deal with them at all. And so at the end of the day, how many of you, if you're honest, it all goes back to the uncomfortable feelings that you have when the first inclination that I have to have a tough conversation, it gets you. It gets you immediately, and your first instinct, all right, I want to be vulnerable here. If your first instinct is, let me put it off, go ahead. Let's say it. That's me. Type it in the chat. That's me. That's me. That's me. I want our first instinct to be running towards it. But for most of us, that's what we do. The first instinct is, I am going to hide. I am going to escape. I am going to move away from the conflict and not towards it. And so, when we do that, when we remain oblivious, when we have our head in the sand, the repercussions of not dealing and not diving straight into the content, they usually surprise us. And we have questions like this: What in the world? You show up one day, and what in the world changed in my relationship with this person? Did I do something that I was unaware with that caused this issue at work? I'm kind of blindsided. Or how did I get to the point where I can't stand a coworker? I mean, how many of you guys, and think about this, there's been times at work when I will not go to a certain wing of our building, and when I forget about why, but I realize I haven't gone to that wing, and then when I think about why, it's like, oh yeah, I don't want to run into that person again. Or is there one person that you just do not want to have a one-on-one with? Because the thought of having to deal with some unmet conflict that's been there for quite some time is just debilitating. And so, why does my relationship with my spouse feel cold? How did I lose the loyalty of my team? Why can't I get along with my son or daughter? Why can't I let go of these minor issues or past wrongs? Why am I sitting in the sales meeting again? Our whole sales team's in the meeting, and this certain employee they've taken credit again. They've taken credit again for work that they didn't really do. Why does that keep bothering me? Well, all of these are going to point back to a tough conversation that has not happened yet. And so, all of you that are on today, can you think of one scenario that's on this list of that you're dealing with right now? Are you with us? Are we alone? Am I the only one? If this is you, just say, hey, I'm there with you. Let us know. So here's a few things. We're really diving into the negative side of not dealing well with tough conversations, not having tough conversations, because it's going to build for us some evidence, and it's going to build for us some drive, because this is a big hurdle to step over. And so here's some of the wrong ways. And so this is where I want you to get a little vulnerable here. I'm going to share some of mine, but what is your go-to? What is your go-to when you don't want to have that tough conversation? I want you to type it in the chat. Who can be bold enough, brave enough? Do you avoid the topic? Do you change the subject quickly when it comes up? Do you hold back what you truly think of an individual or a situation when it comes up? Do you fabricate the truth? Maybe not a bold-faced lie, but we just kind of shave it just a little bit. Do you attack the other person? Do you blow up? At work, I don't think my people have seen me blow up. But do I blow up at home? Absolutely, I blow up at home. And it's usually because I haven't had a tough conversation with one of my kids or potentially my bride. And because of that, I blow up. So I'm going to go ahead and say I do it. There's a couple of these things. I at times blow up. Do you use vague language around the conflict? Do you withdraw and stop engaging? There are some times that I'm an 8, and so I do move towards conflict more naturally than some, but there's just times when I'm so tired, I just want to withdraw and stop engaging. Do some of you become passive aggressive? What about this one? There's always someone in the office that's the sarcastic guy or gal, and she uses humor or joking or sarcasm to, if you will, avoid having a tough conversation. And the problem is it's usually directed towards one person. And in the sarcasm route, that person usually knows who they are. They're kind of the butt of all the jokes when this topic comes up. But it really is hurtful. And the compounding nature of this tactic, because others think, oh, I can joke about it too, really starts to have a negative impact to build towards this, what I would call a toxic scenario. So here's the last one. I know nobody does this. Do you discuss the issue with everybody else except for the person that you have the issue with? And guys, I am guilty of this too. Sometimes I mask this under, I need to get a lot of feedback. I need to get a lot of wisdom from other people. I need to see what they think. And guys, this is really what we call, it's called rumors. It's how you spread rumors. It's how you really put toxicity into a culture, is when you spread your inability or lack of courage in having tough conversations, and you allow it to begin to have a negative impact on your culture. So if you're like me, it wasn't just one that I noticed. It was 3, 4, 5. And what I noticed is it's different. I use different strategies in different environments. Like I said, I just don't blow up at work that often. I'm the CEO. I can't, I have too much pride to blow up at work and someone see me angry, but wow, do I do that at home? And so think about the different tactics you use in different environments. Swing, do you have one that's a go-to for you?
Yeah, like you, Cord, and like a lot of people are mentioning in the comments, I think I'm guilty of multiple, if I'm being brutally honest with myself. Probably the one that's the most glaring for me would be to avoid the topic, maybe not to avoid it completely, but to minimize it. Like, I will reason with myself until I ultimately dismiss it as it's not worth bringing up. And in reality, it actually is. I'll tell myself things like, oh, it's not worth, disrupting the peace on the team. And it's really not even peace that exists, but it's artificial harmony because it's not being engaged with at the rate that it should be. And so I think these are all really good for us to lean into and to think about what are our unhealthy tendencies. But then I think the next question that we have to think about, Cord, is what's at stake if these continue? So if I lean into these unhealthy tendencies and I don't actually ever get to healthy conflict, what could happen? So I'll ask us to go there, go to this place, because like you just said a minute ago, Cord, this is going to be a huge piece of motivation for us to go and have the conversation that needs to happen, that is not going to be easy because of the benefit that's on the other side of it and what it would prevent in the long term. So I'll ask everybody, as you think about, and we'll make this work specific here. I would just love for you to all share some examples of what do you think happens if this plays out? If inside of your culture, people lean into unhealthy tendencies and they don't actually engage in the conflict the right way, how would that impact the dynamic of a relationship at work or the dynamic of a team or success metrics? I'd love to hear, maybe you've been in a situation where you've seen that play out and you've been a part of that maybe toxic environment that could exist, or to begin to visualize what it could potentially look like. So I'd love to hear some examples of what you think could happen if that's the case. I see Karen popping in one right here, but think about that for a second.
It becomes the norm. This is big, because when it becomes the norm, the accepted norm, we're moving further. I love what you said earlier, Swing. You said peace is not the opposite, is not the inverse when you have a lack of conflict. In fact, you're always putting off the inevitable. Conflict that's not dealt with always increases. It never decreases. And so, and when it becomes the norm, again, we go back to what is the fruit of healthy, tough conversations. It's healthy relationships. And then healthy accountability. And when you take tough conversations off the table, you cannot have accountability in your culture. And A players cannot stand when leaders don't hold the team accountable. It's the most frustrating thing for A players. B players are fine with it. C players they're the ones causing it. But A players cannot stand for accountability to not be held, to not be structured in to a team or to an environment. So trust is weakened. Morale, absolutely. Team morale goes down. High turnover. Yeah, A players will leave, Taylor. You're exactly right. Collaboration is weakened. 100%. We could go on and on and on. And so this is going to be a key question when we get to our practical. We've got 4 major questions we're going to ask. I'm giving you a little teaser. This is one of them. When we go through our deal with it conversation guide from Fierce Conversations with we're gonna ask this question. So I wanted to get you thinking about it now. So here she is, Susan Scott, Fierce Conversations. She says this: while no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a business, a career, a marriage, or a life, any single conversation can. So I want you to hold on to that. So the first step to getting to a place where you can heal a broken relationship or one where there's a lot at stake is to simply begin to start having conversations. And so we're going to dive into that. But I want to kind of, how do you, some of you are like, I just will not have a tough conversation. And so many of you, you need to prepare the soil, if you will. If the tough conversation is a seed that you're going to plant and you're going to try to get better at, the first thing you need to do is just start learning how to till the soil, to prepare the soil. It's a lot easier to learn how to prepare the soil than it is just to dive into having tough conversations tomorrow with everybody that's going to come on your radar throughout this webinar. And so there's 2 things you can do to till the soil, to prepare your soil so that you're creating context for these healthy, tough conversations. Number 1 is know people's stories. It is really hard to have an authentic, tough conversation with someone you don't have a relationship with. And so for some of you, that's where you need to start. And there may be someone at work that you need to have a tough conversation with. And before you do that, you just need to sit down and say, I just want to hear your story. I just love to hear a little bit more about you. Because to come in full force, not knowing anything about who they are, is going to be a lot more challenging. Some of you don't have that luxury. You got to have the tough conversation anyway. But guess what? We can be doing this on a regular basis. Get to know people's stories. And then number 2, ask for regular feedback. Ask for regular feedback. Notice I didn't say give feedback, but if you can know people's stories and ask for regular feedback, regardless of what position you sit in, whether you're the CEO of the company, you're the director, you're the manager, or you're just a team member that's 2 weeks on the job, if you will ask for regular feedback, hey, give me feedback. Hey, how could I improve? Hey, you saw me do that sales meeting. What could I do? Give me one thing I could work on. When you show other people that you are willing to be vulnerable and show weakness, it does amazing things to break down walls that are built there with some that are there because you've contributed to them being there, and some are just there because life has not gone well for this individual in certain ways or recently, and they just have their own big wall around sharing anything hard or going to any kind of tough place with another person. And so if you'll work on these 2 things, it will provide a context for you now to begin to have regular tough conversations. And so as we move to our next question, when do you know you need to have a tough conversation? I want to walk you through a little science here. But if you ask a question, what is a person? What is an individual? What makes someone human? If you ask the question, a lot of people say, what is somebody's heart? When you say, hey, I want to, there's a wise proverb that says, above all else, guard your heart. What is that? What makes up a person's humanness? It's 4 things. Number 1, it's your thoughts. 2, emotions. 3, decisions. 4, desires. Thoughts are what you think, the rational thoughts that you think with your mind that are then channeled to emotions. That's what you feel. You feel from the thoughts or the sensing aspects that you take in information, and they immediately go through your emotions to then hit your decisions, which is your will. This is what you choose. This is your how you make decisions in your life is through your will. So your thoughts go to your emotions, go to your decisions that then are connected to your desires. Everybody has deep desires to be known. Everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to have what it takes. Everybody wants to produce. Everybody wants to do something in their life that adds value. These are all deep desires. And so there is one of these four that is what I call the dashboard. This is what was going to trigger you to know you need to have a tough conversation. All right. The little clock's ticking down. Anybody got a guess here? Well, here we go. It's your emotions. All right. And why is it your emotions? Your emotions are your dashboard to your heart. But your emotions are also what drive your decisions. It's not your thoughts. It's not the rational. The rational goes immediately, subconsciously to the frontal part of our brain where our emotions are stored, and then our emotions drive our behavior, whether we know it or not. And so we need to see our emotions and pay attention to our emotions so they can be the dashboard for us. You walk into that meeting, and then again, that same employee takes credit for something you did in that sales process, and boom, that light goes off again. Well, the more that light goes off in any one circumstance, and maybe it's the first time you came in, and that happened for the first time. I came in, I did a lot of work, someone else took credit for it, boom, a little light goes off. So do I need to immediately jump in and have a tough conversation? Not necessarily. But if you come back to work tomorrow and you pass by that individual and that light goes off again, okay, now you're getting an indication. When you see the light go off multiple times after you've had the first engagement, to the degree that that light goes off and that light gets brighter, meaning there's more emotions that are felt at a deeper level every time that situation comes back to your rational thinking, you know that you need to have a tough conversation. The emotions will be your dashboard. And so how quickly do you think I need to have this known tough conversation? Now that I see the lights are going off, I've passed by that office again for the third time. I haven't spoken to my child, or rather she hasn't spoken to me in a whole week. I've come back and she's just silent at dinner. She won't respond to my texts. You will feel something there, I promise you. And when you feel that emotion, you've got to realize, okay, tough conversation is needed. So how quickly? Well, there's a couple options. One, you can bury your head in the sand. And I show the picture now, not of the ostrich, but of us, because this is what so many of us do. We don't count. We don't ask the question, what's at stake? And we think it'll just get better, and it never does. It never does. And so that emotion light is going to keep blinking until it gets miserable, until it gets toxic, but it doesn't have to. Another very wise saying is, don't let the sun go down on your anger, if you will, on these emotions that have continued to blink, that have moved to the point to where now you're not just irritated, you're not just frustrated. You've seen yourself now retreat over and over. It's now toxic, and it's moving towards something else. You need to deal with conflict, if at all possible, before the sun goes down. Think about it. Think about the last time you had conflict. If you had just dealt with it. I love this. This was given to me 25 years ago by a leader in college, a leader that was investing me in college. And he was trying to help me with conflict. And I had conflict with one of my roommates, and we just were not the same type of person. And he loved to get up early in the morning, and he had to have everything just right. And we couldn't leave any dish out, and I just wasn't like that in college. Maybe you did all your dishes in college every night. But anyway, that's beside the point. I was having this conversation, and it was getting more and more frustrating to where I didn't want to come back to the house. I'd find myself staying later at the fraternity house, or going in the library. I really don't want to go back because I need to have this tough conversation. If I had it in the very beginning when it first started to bother me, it'd be like seeing in the distance what I can't even tell really what it is, but I could just kind of flick it off if I deal with it immediately. But if I wait and I wait and I wait, and the longer that I wait, it becomes a Mack truck. And how hard is it to deal with that Mack truck when you're right in front of it and it's about to run you over? That's what we do with conflict most of the time. We wait until those lights they're blinking so fast with such volume of light that they're blinding us. And it's the repercussions of the toxicity of the relationship are so far gone that we're fighting to save a relationship now. We're fighting to save a job. We're fighting to save a marriage because we didn't deal early on with the scenario. And so we're about to get into a very practical plan. I can't wait to take you through it. But do you know your position? There's really 3 positions, and I'm really going to share this with you because there's one, we don't have time to focus on all 3, but there's 3 kind of positions that you fall into in light of needing to have a tough conversation. We're gonna deal with the one when you're on offense. When you're on offense, when you know that you have been irritated by someone else. Someone else has done something. Someone else is underproducing. Someone else is not hitting the mark. They're not hitting their quota. Someone else has joked, if you will, about whatever it may be. You're on offense and you see how you need to go correct someone else. We're gonna use and play that out here in just a second. But there are many times when, guess what? You felt like you've been wronged. You felt like you've been slighted. You're frustrated, and now you're on defense. Well, knowing whether you're on offense and whether you're on defense is very important. And then there's another role that you might play, and this is super important because we're all leaders. If you're a leader on this webinar, I don't care what position you sit in. Everybody on this webinar knows there is a conversation that they need to start, and it's not with them. And you're not even a part of the scenario. You're not a part of the conflict, but you're seeing it right now on your team. You're seeing 2 people that need to come together and have a conversation. We call this being stuck in the middle. And so as we have our Wildsparq lessons, and we're going to do a Wildsparq cohort, again, give you an invite to be able to come together and talk more. And we're going to focus more on the defensive side and the coach side when you're stuck in the middle. But all leaders, we need to see this as one of our responsibilities on any team, that we will go be a peacemaker. We'll see the emotions that are stirring between 2 people, and we'll go help them have a tough conversation. So we're going to dive into the offensive side now. And again, I love this quote. We can have, by Susan Scott, we can have the conversations needed to create the results we say we want in our lives, or we can have all of our reasons why we can't have those conversations, but we can't have both. Reasons or results, we get to choose. Guys, you can stay stuck today, or you can choose, hey, I'm going to start working on this. I'm going to just go ask someone their story. I'm going to go ask for feedback. But then I know everybody at the end of this has someone in some domain that you need to go and immediately have a tough conversation with. And that's what I want to challenge you to right now, even before we get to the end. As we walk through the next few slides, they're a very practical way of how we're going to have these tough conversations. There is one that you need to have immediately. Every single one of us do. I don't know what domain it's in. It might be at home. It might be with a child. It might be a kid in college. I'm going to tell a story about one of my kids in college that I've had to have a tough conversation with recently. And I'm going to do it quickly. So there's a couple stages here. You need to treat this seriously. And so you need to prepare well. This is not something you need to do off the cuff. When you see that blinking light, you don't need to immediately go and have a conversation. You need to prepare first. And so how do you prepare? There's 4 questions you're going to ask to prepare before you dive into the conversation. Number 1, what happened? You're just gathering the facts. We're going to ask you, hey, write a 60-second, if you will, outline of the facts of the scenario. Just write them out. Just look and see, are they logical? We want this first to be about facts that are rational, not about your opinion that is emotional. You need to be authentic and share how it's hurting you and how it's impacting you. But first, what happened? What are the facts? And then number 2, what's at stake? What's at stake? We talked about this earlier. You need motivation to have this conversation. And so as you walk through what's at stake if I do have this conversation versus if I don't have this conversation, this is going to give you fuel And it's going to give you the ability to share your heart, to share how this is impacting you. So we'll look at that. And then 3, what's your purpose? You got to have a plan. You got to have a purpose. What is the end result that you're looking for? And then we're always going to ask, what's next? What are we doing next? And so we're going to cover those 3. We're going to start with the question 1. We're diving in. You've got this. I hope you're thinking even right now. I know there's a tough conversation I need to have. You get the person in your view right now, in your mind, in your mind's eye. Here we go. So you're asking what happened. All right. This is going to be available to you. It's called our Deal With It Fierce Conversation Guide. Susan Scott influenced this. And it's going to be given to you. You're going to be able to use this. You're going to be able to work through this, but we're going to walk through it real quick here. So what happened? What do you think is the problem or issue? What information do you have to support that? You do need evidence for this conversation, because if you're going off a whim or just your feelings, that's not fair. It's not fair to come to somebody and to tell them that you have a problem with them and not give them facts about where you've seen the problem. How did you? This is a great question to ask. How did you contribute to the problem? Most of us, we are a guilty party in the conflict. There is something that we probably have done or that we've allowed to happen over time that has contributed to the problem. And by not addressing it and by not having the courage to have the conversation earlier, you are contributing to the problem. It's important that you know what that is and you're able to share that with them, because you're going to share weight. You're going to share weight in this scenario, in this tough conversation. There's going to be a withdrawal that's taken. There always is, but we hope that there's a huge return on our investment. So you need to share the weight. Think about, what are your intentions? You need to really dive down to, what are my intentions here? What do I want to be the outcome? And what are my intentions? How do you feel the other person contributed to the problem? Okay, this is where you really have to dive in and get the facts around how this person contributed to the problem. And then I want you to ask the question too, what might their intentions have been? See, it's really important here, because when you ask yourself, what are your intentions? Most of the time you realize, my intentions are really good. And most times, not always, but most times, the people that are at fault, they haven't thought about it in many cases. They definitely don't know it's hurt you the way that it is, or it's impacting you. But as you think about what their intentions might have been, you're going to realize that you're going to come up with some negative things, and you're going to quickly be able to realize that's pretty outlandish that they would think that. They probably have good intentions here, and I need to be aware of what I think their intentions are. This is the first step. What happened? We're preparing right now. And then we dive into, here it is. What's at stake? All right. What's at stake in the conflict externally? In the words of how it will affect the team. And I'm gonna click back just a second, because I want to give you an illustration. I have a daughter in college, and I'm gonna do this very quickly. And I have multiple daughters in college, so I'm not going to share which one. It's going to be somewhat anonymous, but we're having this open conversation. And she came home with a pretty dismal GPA after her first semester in college. It was a tough semester with her, but we saw what that was, and then we kind of uncovered that she was having a real hard time getting up and going to a morning class. And so we knew I had to come up with, okay, these are the facts of what we've learned about the scenario. And you know how I contributed to the problem? My wife and I, we were aware at some level that it wasn't going well, but we did not come in to ask questions. We just said, hey, she's in college. She's going to figure it out. It's better for her to figure out on her own. She has to become an adult. We did not step in and provide the support that we needed to. What were my intentions? My intentions were fine. I didn't want her to fail, but I wanted her to become an adult. How did you feel the other person contributed to the problem? Well, I don't think she took it very seriously that she needed to make sure she was going to all these classes, et cetera, et cetera. What might their intentions have been? I don't think she wanted to fail out of school. I don't think she wanted to despite us. And so, now that I'm realizing she probably had a strong desire to get good grades. And so we needed to push in more. What's at stake? What's at stake in the conflict externally? In other words, how will it affect the external scenario here? So you're going to think in two ways. What's at stake? How does it affect the team? How does it affect the environment? But then how does it affect your relationship. You're always going to think on both sides of the coin. And so what's at stake if I don't have this conversation with my daughter? It's going to affect her ability to stay in school. It's going to affect my relationship with her because she's got to come home. That's not going to go well. It's her living at home. So as I start thinking about the relationship and the level of disappointment that I'll have if I don't come and we don't come and give her a lot of support, structure, and accountability. What feelings are you experiencing around the issue? How has it impacted you? You need to be able to describe to this person what you felt and how it's impacted you. And then what's at stake for you internally? What do you feel internally is being challenged or threatened? See, usually, and as I went through this with my daughter, I thought there was a narrative that I began to think, well, what if she just doesn't care? She doesn't care that I'm spending all this money. She doesn't care that we've worked really hard to save up to put her there. What was going at stake internally was I was starting to think some negative thoughts about my daughter and our relationship. I was. Does she even really care about me? Does she care that she's hurting her mom and I? So we felt threatened a little bit, and it helped us put ourselves in a position to really see what's at stake. And so asking the question, what's at stake, super important. It's our second step in preparation. And number 3, what's your purpose? What's the plan? Is the real conflict just inside of you? Or can we, based on what's at stake, and come up with a plan? Is this just feelings? It's usually not. And so is there a better way of handling it than talking about it? I want you to ask that question. Is there something else that you can do besides just talking about it? We needed to go and get some academic support. We needed to line up some other things. So we'd have resources for her. And it wasn't just another conversation we were going to have with our daughter. We were going to provide some help and support. What do you hope to accomplish having the conversation? Get a very clear roadmap. We wanted to accomplish a plan going into second semester where she could get all A's and B's, bring her GPA up, and also build a habit of getting up well in the morning. Do you have a purpose that makes sense based on what's at stake and where the conflict truly lies? Absolutely. If she can do that, we can get back on track and she'll do really well in college. And so we're preparing. I'm preparing. We had to go through this, if you will, to get ready to talk with her. And then finally, how do I have this tough conversation? Give me a checklist. It's game time. What are the plays that I run? Okay, this is going to be for you. I'm going to go through this really quickly because we're going to wrap up here in the next 3 or 4 minutes. But the first thing you got to do, you got to schedule it. Go ahead and schedule it. Give yourself no less than a week. If you put it off for 3 months right now, preparing a week out is not going to kill you. Some of you, you just need some time to prepare, but you got to have it scheduled, the one-on-one with the person individually. If it's super intense, I needed to bring my wife into this conversation. I had stronger feelings here than my wife did. She could help, in a sense, almost mediate a little bit. So I needed another person. Name the issue. All right. You're going to sit down. Do not beat around the bush. It is not fun or fair to talk small talk with the individual and then halfway through the conversation say, oh yeah, by the way, I needed to have a tough conversation. No, it's the first thing you're going to tell them. Name the issue. I need to have a fierce conversation. I need to have a tough conversation with you. And here's why. So we're going to look at our facts and we're going to share our facts. Describe your emotions. Once we've shared the facts, I want you to describe how you feel. How has this made you feel? Give a specific example that illustrates the behavior that it's causing the problem that needs to be changed. This is what it's doing to me. And I'm avoiding this side of the hall because, and this is my fault, I'm avoiding even coming by your office because we haven't dealt with this conflict. And it's been going on now for 3 months. I'm sorry about that. And I have contributed to the problem. I have turned a blank eye. Even that there's been times when you've asked for feedback and I did not be real honest with you. I've given you surface level feedback, but I haven't gone the last 10%. I've contributed to the problem. Clarify what's at stake, both internally and externally. Again, I had to clarify with my daughter. Internally, our relationship is getting strained. Externally, you could flunk out of college. It's a big deal. We clarified what's at stake. Identify your contribution to the problem. We've talked about that. Indicate just that you do wish to resolve this issue. This is important. They need to hear you say, like, my win here is that we could resolve the issue and we could be well, if you will, the negative behavior stops, and then our relationship is repaired and put back on a track where we can add value to each other. A big deal. And this is super important. Number 8, you've got to then, you're doing this in really the first 5 or 6 minutes, 10 minutes max. Hopefully you can get this out in 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and then you've got to be quiet. You've got to invite the other party to respond, and you truly listen. I want to understand what's going on from your perspective. I may not have all the facts right, but please tell me what's going on with you, or what's going on with your team, or so on and so forth. And then they need to know that you've heard them. Acknowledge that you understand their feelings. You understand where they're coming from. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but understand, listen in an understanding way. And then this is where you've gone and you've planned out. You're going to propose now a solution. Here's what we're going to do. So your mom and I, either one of us, we're going to call you every morning for the first month in college, and we're going to make sure you're up. And then we're going to move to where you're going to just send us a picture. Just send us a picture that you're up and you're going to your class. I kid you not. I had to look at my phone, and we're getting, but it's working. It's causing, or we're giving her a solution that's working, and it's very pragmatic. It's very practical. It's not personal, but this is a working solution. We're agreeing. We made sure I proposed that, and I wrote it up for her. I wrote it up, and I said, look, I know this is crazy, but I want you to sign this. And I'm not asking you for you to draw a contract up for all of your scenarios, but you need to agree. You need to agree on the game plan moving forward and what your check-in steps will be. When you will check back to see the progress that we're making as we move forward. And so I promise, if you will just take the time to think and prepare, when you dive in to have this conversation, you will begin to grow muscles. You will begin to grow a part of you that you've never done before, and you'll realize this is what's said on the backside of most of these conversations. Wow, I had no idea you feel that way. Wow, I had no idea I was disappointing you that way. And then as we do move forward in the plan, the relationship is always better than it was before. 99 times out of 100, if you go through this process and you agree on a plan to move forward, your relationship is better after this conversation than it was before. Now, it doesn't mean that the person is completely competent and is not going to miss on what they're doing. This is not a competency thing. They may need a lot more accountability, and they may realize they're not the right person for the opportunity. But the relationship in every scenario can be salvaged. So, gonna land the plane here. I do want to save there's got about 7 or 8 minutes for some questions.
Yeah. And Cord, I first I want to say thank you for sharing this framework with everybody. This is incredibly impactful as I think about any conflict in my life. I would love, I don't want these 11 things on the list just to be great insights that live and die here on this webinar. So I would love it if some of our audience that's listening right now, as you look at this list, there's probably things on the list that you have naturally done pretty well. And there's probably a couple of things on this list that have been overlooked in previous difficult conversations as you reflect on how you typically engage in conflict. I would say identify those things. What are the 2, 3, 4 numbers that you see here on the list that you're like, man, I need to make sure that the next time I have a difficult conversation, I'm doing these 2, 3, 4 things, and I'm making sure I'm checking these off the list to get to that outcome that Cord just described, to get to that agreed upon game plan where we move forward in a really positive way. So think about that. Throw it in the chat if you want a little bit of accountability there to speak it into existence. And then Kaylee, I know that you're going to help facilitate the wrapping up of this and share with all of our good people what happens next. Take it away.
So as Swing said, if you have any questions, now is the perfect time to get those put in. Real quick, I'm going to jump over to our cohort slide. So our cohort is something we do monthly takes place typically after, well, I guess in this case, it'd be before the webinar in that month, but it's after the webinar for us right now. So our April cohort will actually have to do with what we have kind of just covered just now. We'll talk about tough conversations. And what that kind of looks like is it's technically our leadership cohort, where we bring in roughly, around 24 people, and we kind of open up Wildsparq. You get to experience a unit, kind of walk through it, and it's with, business leaders from all kinds of different areas across the nation, pretty much. So if that is something you're interested in, I recommend go ahead now, scan this QR code, get signed up before we fill up spots. You get to experience the lesson. There will be tons of additional resources to tackle, these tough conversations. It really is a great unit that we would love for you to get to experience, get a front row, try it out, see if, there's anything else that this kind of leads to you talking about or opening up or whatever that would look like. It is self-paced, takes maybe 30 minutes total. You have about 3 weeks to complete that. And then that last week of the month, we all come together on a Zoom call where you get to unpack it for about 45 minutes to an hour. You just discuss the unit. I know we'd love to have you there, love to have you join us, and just kind of hear more about your situation, how these topics have applied directly to you. So along with that,
I think group 6 to 8. So, there's going to be a lot of room for shared conversations. This is not another webinar. This will be a group discussion that you'll get to have with 6 to 8 other. We try to put different folks in different with different angles and different jobs and different positions, so that you can get a broad conversation going. But you're going to have the conversations we've had have been absolutely phenomenal. Where you'll get to give your input. We'll get to have lots of dialogue. So don't miss this opportunity. We've had to open up a couple groups. We've expanded it with the demand over the last couple months, and so get your request in early. Save your spot so that you can jump on that cohort.
If you miss the chance to scan the QR code, you will also receive it in an email. After this, there will be, all the resources we talked about, a recording of this webinar, and you will receive the 4 questions to ask before you enter a tough conversation. So you'll receive tons of resources, tons of information after this. That's also why we always recommend, if you want to be a part of the webinar, you don't think you can make it during the time that we're live, always sign up for it, because you will receive a recording of it after the fact. So with that, I know we've got a few minutes left. If there are any questions, let's see, Greg and Karen had a great referring back to our list. Number 8 is critical.
Yeah, and it's the hardest part for me, because I just you haven't noticed. I like to talk. I like to talk a lot. I like to fill space. I'm learning to let silence do its work. A great mentor said, "Let silence do its work." You may have to sit for 30, 60 seconds before someone is prepared and ready to share, but give them the opportunity and listen well. I've really had to grow and learn that, and learn how to do that well. So here's the challenge. Everybody has one tough conversation they need. Most of you have 5 or 6, but my challenge is to take this opportunity as a sign that said, hey, guess what? Now's the time. Now's the time to go have that conversation with someone, the one that was put on your mind, and do it in the next 7 days. Prepare well, prepare your heart, prepare your mind, get ready, think through it well, use the tools and the resources, but schedule it today. Schedule it for no more than 7 days out, but schedule it today. If you'll do step 1 and just schedule the one-on-one, that'll be a huge step for most of you. And can't wait to hear how you guys use this, and hopefully there'll be relationships restored, and maybe even some of those will be in your family. And that would thrill us to death to know that we could have an impact, not just in your boardroom, but in your family room. So thank you guys for being a part, being on board with us. And it's always a pleasure. And we hope that you become a leader ready, so that you can develop and multiply yourself into other leaders that will be ready. Thanks so much.
Yes. And if anybody, if you want to learn more, if you want to know more about leadership, tough conversations, whatever that looks like. Scan this QR code, shoot us an email, a message, follow us on LinkedIn, whatever you want that to look like. This will take you to schedule some time to chat with us so that way it's a time that works for you as well. So yeah, and we thank you so much, Swing and Chord, for taking the time to bring us more info on this. It was so helpful. Grateful for the resources. So I know we are all walking away equipped and ready to take on those tough conversations. So
Love it.
all right,
Let's
guys.
go.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes.